Our British tar is a soaring soul, as free as a mockingbird. I cringed my ass off when I saw this scene back in 1999. I was 14. Which would have rhymed better. Star Trek Insurrection. This is my review on the anniversary, which I think was actually yesterday for me. In Australia, though, I think it was released a little bit later. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you thought of Star Trek Insurrection, especially after First Contact. Star Trek Insurrection. I remember after First Contact seeing the Borg, seeing Picard, seeing that new motif, the new Enterprise, the E, of which I've strategically placed behind me. I remember going into it going, man, this looks like a brilliant movie. And I remember being really excited about it, but it looked very different. It was outside, a lot of it. We had a village, we had weird people. And I remember going to see it 3 times. And that was because I saw episode 1, The Phantom Menace, 3 times. And I felt I owed it to Star Trek. So I gave them my money. And what I got was this weird hodgepodge of early Gene Roddenberry Star Trek mixed with the weird action overtones of First Contact. And it's an amazingly uneven film. So the Baku live on a planet that has a set of rings that causes them to de-age. They've abandoned all sense of technology, but they know technology. They're being spied on by the Federation and the sonar, and we find out later on that the sonar and the Baku are the same race, except the sonar went off after they landed on the planet because they wanted technology and obviously slaves and women. It's called Insurrection, and they talk about forced relocation of people, obviously hinting at Native Americans and hinting at Aboriginal populations around the world. But it doesn't actually hold very well because this planet of purely very white people standing in for an indigenous population, and then they also have technology that hadn't always been on that planet, so it's not actually violating the Prime Directive. It didn't violate the Prime Directive. So when I saw the movie, and I remember thinking this as a 14-year-old going, but it doesn't really violate the Prime Directive. You've got a race that is dying. Yeah, they're a terrible race. They have slaves, they use genetic manipulation to stay younger, they're a dying race, they can't breed, which we only find out in a deleted scene. But at the same time, the Baku don't actually belong there, so it's not their natural evolution. It was a weird thing where I'm going, I don't really get it. And the motifs of an indigenous culture is sort of where it falls down. If the Baku had started on the planet, then I would have been like, okay, this makes sense. But what we get is they didn't. They came here on ships, decided to abandon their technology. Then a group of them decided, no, fuck this, I'm going to go off. It was an interesting play. Now the whole thing is, obviously there's a message of moving people on who are living there. They try to put over the genocide / relocation of a group, and they try to put this message of technology can sort of ruin lives, and they try and get this motif of living a peaceful life with less technology, this romanticized view of living in the moment and age as a perspective, and we see that through the crew going through some sort of effect where they sort of go through puberty / act younger than they are, which leads to some amusing moments. But overall, this crew in their 3rd movie, the first one after the huge success of First Contact, being sort of shown as being, oh, they're a bit old, oh look, they're acting younger, seems a bit silly to me, because this is the TNG crew in their prime. Between the end of Next Gen and Insurrection, that they all, to me, fit their characters perfectly. But what we got is a film saying, no, these guys are old, and they're going back to their youth. And the funny thing is Nemesis sort of hints at this, but at the same time sort of avoids it, tries to make them feel younger just because they want the action beat. And this is where my problem is. The whole movie has a message of live in the moment, technology is not the be-all and end-all, forced relocation of people. There's a huge message in this by Michael Piller, who was trying to make a more Gene Roddenberry-esque film. And I like the message. I don't think the links to indigenous populations works. I don't think that a lot of it sort of messes up. In the original ending, Ruafu, the leader of the Sonar, is on the Collector, which is a big ship which is going to collect the radiation and kill the Baku. He's on there, and when it's exploded, he sort of de-ages down, which, can I say, visual effects wise would be freaking amazing. But the ending we got was Picard transporting away and Ruafu's just incinerated. I don't know why when they move to the TNG films, it just becomes a big Picard action beat at the end of every film. So in Generations, we've got Kirk and Picard fighting Soren. First Contact, we've got Picard and Data fighting the Borg Queen. This one, we've got Picard fighting Ruafu. At the end of Nemesis, we get him fighting a real young clone of himself, and Data's there as well. They sort of moved into this weird motif. I really enjoyed the Riker and Troy flirting moments. I think Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis really click with each other. There's a real fun and play with this. And the biggest payoff of this movie is in the next movie, they get married, and then we get that whole thing. I like that progression. And the one thing I had a problem with the TNG films is there was no interconnectivity between the films. Like, I honestly feel that TNG should have had 3 Borg invasion films as their films. Sort of an initial, an invasion, and a stopping them. Like, it would have been fantastic. I don't know why they didn't do it, because they knew that Star Trek was going to keep making films. But the focus on action with Picard is weird. Because in the TNG series, Picard wasn't the action hero. Picard was the diplomat. He was reasonable. Yes, he would do action beats, but he wasn't an action character. That was Riker. And I see that in this film, they've tried to do the opposite of First Contact. So Riker's on the Enterprise, Picard's on the planet. Picard gets a romance with a woman named Anij. And the romance is okay, but is it needed? Not really. They could just be friends. It's a really odd juxtaposition between First Contact. This First Contact worked remarkably well because you had the sort of the audience POV character, and you had the going to the past, but not the past for us, the past for the characters. So we get to see a future after World War III. We get the Borg, which is their biggest villain. We get the characters in a new ship with a new uniform. It looked sleek, it looked new. This one, and I know that Industrial Light and Magic didn't do the special effects for this because some of the special effects are bad. Like, and it's a switch. I'm pretty sure this film was the one where they used sort of mostly CGI Enterprise with a few model shots. But this one, there's a few times where the Enterprise looks a bit more squat or it looks a little more straight, like they've just quickly rushed it together. It was done by Digital Domain, and I think they were a new company back then. This film, overall, had a lot of beats that were really good. The moment where Geordi sees the sunset for the first time with his own eyes is a beautiful moment. Data walking in on Crusher and Troy talking about how their boobs have firmed up is a weird moment.
And have you noticed how your boobs have started to firm up?
Not that we care about such things in this day and age.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Data.
I have an odd craving for the blood of a live Kolar beast. This environment must be affecting me again.
And have you noticed how your boobs have started to firm up? Not that we care about...
Riker and Troy flirting with each other is played off as really, really fun. Picard flirting with Anij seems a bit awkward, but I don't know why they wanted a romance in it. Nemesis didn't have a romance. It had Picard and Riker getting married. Generations didn't have a romance. First Contact had sort of a friend romance. Like, it was an interesting step after First Contact, and I know that the studios recommended that they go for a more light-hearted comedic feel like Star Trek 4. The problem being that the TNG cast was notorious for not being hugely funny. I think Riker is charming. I think Marina Sirtis can be funny. I think the other characters can be amusing. I just don't think they're amusing in Star Trek. Particularly like Brent Spiner is amusing in his non-reactions. Marina Sirtis is funny when she's just being playful with Jonathan Frakes. Patrick Stewart's not terribly funny in Star Trek. But all in all, I actually liked, as a kid, I loved this film. I thought it was it was a Gene Roddenberry vision, that perfect future. The values of Starfleet were in question. The admiral had been working with the sonar to do this, and the Federation didn't quite know the details. There's a huge reference in this to the Dominion War and doing a brush fire. There's no real explanation for why Worf is there. He's just kind of there. We get the mention of the fact that with the Dominion War, Starfleet is looking for more allies, so they're going for more questionable races. And the funniest part is TNG very rarely dealt with anything to do with the Dominion War. It's mentioned in Nemesis, it's mentioned in Insurrection, but otherwise, we never saw the Enterprise E even get close to the Dominion War. Weird juxtaposition in the fact that Deep Space Nine was heavily involved in this. Voyager had a reason, they were far away, but the TNG movies just ignored the Dominion War. Even if they did a movie about the Enterprise on a mission during the Dominion War that affected the Dominion War, would have been a better movie. Michael Piller died of cancer, I think it was about 8 years after this, but he was very keen on creating a Gene Roddenberry future film. There's a lot of this humanism, and maybe he was a bit more retrospective on things. He wanted to go back to the way sort of TNG episodes were. And a lot of criticism of this movie is that it feels like a TNG episode. And I agree, it does feel very much, Who Watches the Watchers comes to mind. It very much feels like a TNG episode with a bigger budget. I remember being amazed by the little worm that Adam had. But I digress. My final thoughts on this film is, it's not the best TNG film, it's not the best Star Trek film. It's a fun, light adventure. The stakes don't feel super high. It's very difficult to care for characters who it's questionable whether they're actually doing wrong or actually doing right. I think F. Murray Abraham did a fantastic job as a leader of the sonar, Ruafu. I think that the actor who played the second in command, I can't remember his name right now, I think he had an excellent ability to show the duality of how he was feeling and his growth as a character through the film. At the end of the film, we get the sonar that are left joining the Baku on the planet, and we know that it's not really going to affect them soon enough, but them joining together as a people. And I liked the twist. I didn't mind the twist. It was, I don't know if it was obvious. I think when I was 14, it wasn't obvious. When you watch it now, it's quite obvious. Anyway, this has been a sort of a rambling review of Star Trek Insurrection on the anniversary. Make sure to subscribe, like, comment. Tell me what you think about this film. What did you think about the overall story and the humanist feelings and about time and how you should live in the moment? I'm a British tar, and I'll see you next time.
A British tar is a soaring soul, as free as a mountain bird. His energetic fist should be ready to resist a dictatorial word. Sing, Wolf, sing.